Hey, Todd.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Well, it's been an interesting 15 hours, 20 hours in my life, Beth, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah.
What's going on?
So here's the deal. My mother-in-law is staying with us, and my wife and she and a couple of my wife's siblings are emptying out the apartment of their grandparents because they're moving into an assisted living place. So going through a closet, my wife finds a pair of handcuffs.
Oh.
And of course, what comes to mind, why do these people have handcuffs? And it's probably pretty obvious, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. To each their own, as my grandma would have said. To each their own. So my wife, as a joke, she says, "Hey, I got something for you from Grandma and Grandpa's house." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So she close your eyes. So I close my eyes, and she hands me the handcuffs. And I thought they were like toy handcuffs, right? I mean, they were metal, but you know those handcuffs you can put on, and then you just hit a button, and they slip right off.
Spin all the way through.
Beth?
Yeah?
They weren't toys.
Oh, no.
And we didn't have a key.
Oh, no.
And like a fool, just for fun, I just slap it on. Ha, 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 ha. For about 2 hours, my wife tried to pick the lock, and she couldn't do it. She used paper clips. She used a bobby pin. She even pulled out one of the underwire from her bra.
Oh, no.
Trying to get in there to get it. And finally, after about 2 hours, I called the non-emergency police number in Riverside, where I live. And I said, "Hey, I got a little problem." And she's like, the dispatcher is laughing, and my wife is dying, and my mother-in-law is rolling her eyes. And then I told the dispatcher, I said, "I promise you this was not a sex thing. This was just stupidity on my part." And so they sent over not one but two police officers to try to.
Somebody said, "I know you don't need help, but I got to see this."
Yeah. So, and I put this, of course, on social media immediately, and it wasn't a gag. I mean, people thought I was doing a gag, right? It's like, no, this is real. My mother-in-law is here. I am not going to do something like this with my mother-in-law here intentionally, you know?
No. But was it her mom then that had the handcuffs?
Yeah.
So she might have, depending on, her upbringing, she might have had an inkling that her parents were a little kinky, perhaps.
Well, I think we did, and that was the conversation that took place after the police left and used the bolt cutters to get it off, because apparently these cuffs were really old, and the keys that they use now wouldn't fit. So,
okay,
yeah.
Plus, I'm sure her mom swallowed them at some point. Right. After they were put on.
Yeah. So now I'm trying to figure out if I should auction them off for charity or just give them away to Caller 10. Yeah. So anyway, that's not why you called. You didn't call to talk about my handcuff problems.
Your sexcapades.
Yeah. You are, well, first of all, you are a well-known comedian. You've been doing this for a while now. You've got specials. You've got albums. You're all over social media. I've been watching. I mean, I was aware of you, but I went back and I watched a bunch of your clips and watched your specials again. And the one that you did here in Dayton at Victoria was amazing. And I can only imagine performing in your hometown. And I can relate to that. I grew up in Beaver Creek, and I'm doing my talk show, the kind of show I wanted to do on my hometown station. So it's just kind of neat. Yeah.
It is very neat. I mean, it's awesome that, especially since that was a dream of yours, it's like one of those things. First of all, thank you also for watching. I appreciate it. And I love coming home. I think some people, there was a couple of, one review in particular that was very touching was the New York Times review. And they said along the lines of about a homecoming special in a lot of ways. But the truth is, the material did seem it was more of a coincidence that it happened in Dayton, because I thought that wasn't exactly the plan. It's just that Dayton fell at the end of the tour, and we thought, should we film this and to see what happens with it? Because at the time, it wasn't guaranteed to go to Netflix. We ended up licensing it to them. We were just kind of taping it. So all that to say, it ended up being kind of perfect, because the material, of course, did include stuff about growing up in Dayton. And once I knew that we were coming towards that taping, I did start writing more Dayton-centric material, so that it could be fun.
You got me right off the bat, because I am a huge Wright Brothers geek. And when you started doing your material about the Wright brothers, I'm like, I'm almost certain that there's never been a comedian of her stature do jokes about Orville and Wilbur Wright. And if they did, they weren't doing it outside of the 937 area code. You know?
Exactly. You can imagine how those jokes went when I performed in North Carolina. Angry mob.
Oh, yeah, I would imagine. Yeah. What was the line? You had the wind? Is that?
Oh, yeah. We just used you for your win.
Yeah, we just used you for your win. Yeah, that is true. That is true. But you grew up in Oakwood, which is just down the street from the radio station where I'm doing the show right now. And so the thing that I didn't realize, I went back and I pulled up your Wikipedia, and it said that you won a speech and debate championship here in Ohio back when you were in high school, and it was for humorous interpretation. So my question, when you were doing that, I mean, did you have aspirations to do stand-up or some sort of something in the comedy field, and that's why you did it, or you just thought, well, this will be a kick, and we'll see what happens, and then it took off?
Well, I definitely, there's, I guess a few factors. One being, like, the youngest child of my three sisters, I was very, a little bit of a ham, attention-seeking. I was always sort of outgoing and wanting laughs. And so I had that already going for me, sort of an outgoing personality, and I liked making people laugh. So when I was looking for an outlet for that, initially my hyperactivity was, my mom got me involved in dance, which I didn't really stick with, and then gymnastics, which helped get some energy out. But as I aged, I did know that I wanted to perform more. And so that was the first outlet that I really found, because my sisters were doing, like, theater under the stars, Kettering Theater under the Stars, and ballet, which I loved going to see. I think those things sort of scared me a little bit, but I did think that once I saw Speech and Debate performed at it was like a program or whatever, sharing program type thing, I'm trying to assembly, that's when I thought, oh my goodness, that's so cool. I saw the older students doing it, and I said, I want to do that. And I started as a freshman in Humorous and Terp, and it really was sort of a gateway. It's parallel in some ways to stand up, in that it is a singular event, performance. It's just you in front of a classroom, because it's meant to be funny. You're trying to get laughs. That I was playing different characters and different voices, and it was just really fun for me. I enjoyed it, and it had that competitive edge, which you're going to have as a stand-up too, to think that you should speak into a microphone and think that you would be different than the hundreds of thousands of people who have come before and after you and trying to do it too. So,
well, I
think it was definitely parallel to, but we didn't have cable, so I didn't really know a ton about stand-up. It was another speech and debate kid, Will Allen, who burned me Jim Gaffigan's CD back in the day. So that was the first stand-up I really heard. And that's when I thought, oh, okay, maybe that's something I might be into trying. But it scared me for a long time.
Yeah.
Stand-up's very intimidating.
Right. So you go to Miami University in Oxford.
Yeah.
You graduate from there. Do you immediately go to Chicago? Or
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, days after graduation, drove there, got a ride, and moved in with a couple other theater major guys, Tim and Derek. Mm-hmm. And I did audition for some shows, and that I did a show. I did Brecht's Good Person of Szechuan, and I think it was just sort of like, not a wake-up call. I mean, I didn't get into theater to become some sort of millionaire, but it was very little pay, lots of rehearsals. I was working a couple jobs, and I think that's when I thought, well, I don't have much control here. You just audition for the play. You know, it doesn't mean that's the play you necessarily want to do. You're just trying to get into any play, really.
You're just trying to get a gig, and you're trying to make some money and eat, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So it was sort of like I felt, it's not like in the most, you know, not the worst connotation way, but I felt a little powerless, you know, where it was like, well, I don't really have much control here. And that's when I thought, but I could if I wrote my own stuff and went to open mics.
Yeah.
So that's how I sort of felt like, well, this might give me the sense of like I have some semblance of control over where my life's going, you know?
Well, that's 100% true. And you can do that anywhere. Right, you know, to a large extent, and it's your voice, and that's what I love about doing my show. Unlike, you know, working on another music station or something like that, where you're sort of you know, you're kind of tied up with what you're supposed to talk about and whatnot. I just let it fly, and whatever happens. You know, there's some great freedom to that. Now, when you were in Chicago, did you ever consider someplace like Second City or Improv Olympics, or were you always sort of, you know, at that point maybe you were like, I just want to be a solo artist here. I want to do stand up, and I want to focus on that.
Yeah, I think, you know, another Daytonian, Matt Craig, who still works in the industry, several years older than me. I got in touch with him. He was very helpful in sort of a mentor way. He was on the main stage of Second City, and he got me front row seats. Another Daytonian, Taylor Burris, she was going through the program, so I got to kind of see firsthand how difficult it can be and how many people were trying to do it. Now, stand-up's not that much different, but I just got a front seat to their experiences, and I got an internship at Steppenwolf Theater Company my junior year of college, and I was interning there and also volunteering at Gilda's Club. And so I got to be there. And Matt Craig basically said, like, hey, is this something that you are serious about? And I said, yes. He said, well, are you willing to work 10 years towards it? You know, because that's how long it took me to get to the main stage. Yeah. And I looked at him and I thought, not really. And he said, well, you should try stand-up.
Yeah.
So really it was Matt Craig that pushed me in that direction because I don't know, I was more of a lone wolf. I always kind of was as a kid as well, very type A, kind of rule follower. You know, often didn't work that great in groups because I just felt like, well, you know, don't touch it, I'll do it, which is not necessarily the best quality, but it is if you want to be a stand-up.
Control freak.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was his encouragement towards that. And then I will say 3 years into stand-up, I did feel a little disillusioned. You know, winters are very long in Chicago. It was dark. I was sort of feeling like, what am I doing here? You know, 3 years in, what does it all mean? And so I actually did enroll in classes at the Annoyance Theater, which is an improv theater. And I made friends with one of the teachers there who, you know, saw something in me and then invited me to do some long-form improv with her and a couple other girls. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the last thing I did before I left Chicago was devise this. It was a 10-minute play, like for a sketchbook collaboration. And then it went so well, we won like audience pick. We turned it into a full-length play, which actually gets done all around the world.
Oh, wow.
When I was touring Australia, somebody reached out and said, "Oh, are you here to see the production of 5 Lesbians Eating a Quiche," which is what we called it. And I said, "No, I'm here performing. I'm on a tour." But it's just ironic that it's happening at the same time. So I get, you know, $5 checks every now and then for that play getting done everywhere.
Well, that's got to be a nice feeling. Yes, it's just $5, but boy, I mean, the fact that somebody on the other side, and underneath the planet, is doing your work and saying your words and, you know, making it real.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that was done through improv. So it's like there's so many ways. You know, I thought, to be honest with you, when you said, do you do Second City or IO, I thought about it, but the kids I was around in 2005 when I was in school, that I was still in college and they were living there doing it, and it was intimidating. Like, it was like, I don't know if I want to do this. It's so much. And it is in some ways a huge financial commitment as well. You're taking these classes, and sometimes there's politics involved.
Yeah,
it's like
I took classes there many, many years ago, probably early 2000, like the 2004, 2005. And I loved that idea, but I was a single parent, and it's like, I don't think you can really succeed in Chicago doing improv when you're a single parent. That's not going to work.
Yeah, exactly. You have the classes, which are expensive, and you're trying to be away at night, so then you're paying for a sitter. It's a lot. Yeah, I can imagine that added a totally new layer of difficulty to it.
So
I think I thought it would be funny too if I never took classes there.
I like that. Yeah. So you went to L.A. and you're there now. I mean, that's where you're based out of. And beyond just doing the stand up though, you've been a part of many groundbreaking comedy shows as a writer and a producer. And the one that I'm most interested in is working with Sarah Silverman.
Yes. Sarah rules.
I got to be honest with you. When I first became aware of her many years ago, I was sort of, oh boy. And I've grown to really enjoy her work for sure.
Yeah, I think that's one of her best qualities too. Is like she continues to evolve. Yeah, and she tries to. It's not that she tries to remain relevant. I think she basically she changes when new information comes into her life. So I think it's like, she's experienced over the years as a comedian who's been doing it for, over 40 years. Like, yes, she's experienced all the different waves of comedy, the trends and things, becoming passé or no longer acceptable. And she's faced the repercussions of that. And we addressed it on I Love You, America, her show on Hulu. Mm-hmm. And she just takes responsibility for it and moves forward the best way possible. So it's like she's such a great example, I think, of that. You don't have to get in trouble for something you did 30 years ago and have it cancel you and ruin your life. You can go, hey, I accept responsibility for that, and I apologize, and here I am now. I don't continue with that. I think you have to. She just talks about it a lot, which is like, what were my intentions? I'm a human that has good intentions, and so I no longer do those things. I have no desire to hurt anyone. Well, and people, I think, for the most part, accept that and appreciate it.
I mean, everything we do and say in entertainment, it's based on what you're feeling at the moment, and like you said, the information that you have, the way the culture feels about certain things, and then at some point that changes. Well, if you don't change, then that's a problem. But if you do make the change, they shouldn't be. People shouldn't be going back and. It's like, I remember when you were in 8th grade and you said this or you did this, so therefore I hate you for the rest of my life. It's like, well, okay, don't.
Sorry, you have to hold on to that.
Yeah, that's right. That's about them and not about you. So,
right. So she's done her best to adapt, which I love. She's such a good, she's a good example. She's someone I look up to, and that I'm so grateful to be friends with her, to have her in my life, and. She's a good friend, and I'll be on tour with her starting next month and through January.
Well, talking about Sarah, and I know this is probably a big cliche when you do interviews, the standard question about being a woman in stand-up comedy. Because I was watching a clip today where you were talking about, and I want to say it was maybe a comedy festival in Vegas, where you were checking into a hotel, and the gift bag, the swag bag, had a particular adult item that might be somewhat useful. They're not handcuffs. That's right, but would be useful to men, but maybe not so much a woman. I mean, what have you experienced? I'll just use the word with sexism in stand-up comedy. I just can't imagine trying to be out there working the clubs, going from town to town, being a singular female performer and navigating all of the creepers out there.
Exactly. And I'm grateful that, nothing extraordinarily heinous has happened at the comedy club at the hands of like a manager or a booker. But it makes you so much more grateful when you have a manager at a club that really cares and is doing their best work. I would say, over the years in the realm of sexism, it's often that I'll get to a club and you can see the month line up and it's mostly men. And then
right.
I might be the woman there for the month. And, the truth is I don't know. It's a grander cultural issue as well, but a lot of people feel safer or like it's a safer bet to have the straight white guy come for the weekend. I think sometimes I use the example of like, if people could vote privately before they boarded a plane who they want their pilot to be, I'm guessing a lot of people are going to press the white guy.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, you have those biases. It's part of our culture. America is an incredible country. I'm grateful to be here. It's based on, patriarchy and racism.
Sure.
And there's a lot of stuff that we grew up and you kind of have to undo. And the best way to do that is exposing yourself to all different kinds of people, traveling, hearing different perspectives than your own. Those are the only ways that you can really get outside of yourself. Even you feeling comfortable enough to ask me about it, to bring it up and to acknowledge that, it is male-dominated. That's a fact. And not take personal offense to it shows that you as a human and a man understand that, life's different for me than for you. As a white woman, I also experience a lot of privileges. So,
right.
In the grand scheme of things, having started comedy in the, 2000s, it's like things were already so much better for me because of all the women that came before me. So I think ultimately what I've experienced is less pay. If you talk to the other men, hey, what was your offer versus mine? Mine's gonna be lower unless I were to fight for it. And I have an agent, but sometimes you
take a
holding
risk.
them accountable.
You take a risk fighting for it because if a man fights for something like that, well, he must be worth it because he's making the fight, and maybe a woman fighting for it might be, man, she's to work with.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Exactly.
And it's like double standard.
Exactly that, or you're just lucky to be here. What do you mean you're complaining?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So thankfully, with there are pros and cons, of course, to the internet when it comes to what it's done to comedy. But if anything, it has exposed people to a lot of different voices. And look, everybody seems to understand that when it comes to music, you don't like all genres. Some people like country, some people don't. Some people like jazz, some people think it's terrible.
Right.
But they don't exactly know how to apply that to comedy. And it's like you're going to have a taste in comedy as well. Some people you like, some people you don't.
Yeah.
So I think having more voices out there makes people realize, like, you can find somebody that you really like. And not everything is one way. Like, it's not just, well, you're not funny. It's like, well, you don't think I am, but I have this group of people that do and that come out and see my shows, and you don't have to be in it. So I think it's like, I would say that. I would say, too, people feel more comfortable asking me how to get into the biz, after a show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whereas a lot of times men will come up to me and be like, there's usually a nagging aspect to it. Like, you were all right. And it's like, you can just say you loved it. You can just say you loved it. And then sometimes they'll ask me, like, oh, well, I've done it a couple times, too.
Oh,
or,
I'm sure you have. Yeah,
it.
I've heard that, too. I've worked in radio since 1990. And, it's I oftentimes I'll have somebody, oh, well, I do a podcast, and so it's like, well, okay. Have you been doing that for 30 years?
Exactly.
Probably not. So, I don't mean that in a cocky way, but it's like we're on a different level here.
Yeah, and I think they do want something from you or I. And it's like, the more endearing thing is to say, hey, I respect what you do. I have an interest in it, but I haven't figured out how to make that jump. Do you have a little advice?
Yeah.
And I'd be so happy to give it to you.
Yeah.
You don't need to belittle me to get it out. I would say the other thing I often get is, did you write that? And it's like, yeah, who else would have,
Right.
You think I have a writer? I mean, and again, maybe some dude comics get that question too. I don't know, but I find that an interesting one to second guess whether I've written my own.
Well, I've got two questions. One is going to be about the show that you're doing Saturday, November 12th or November 2nd at Victoria. Yep. So we'll get to that. But in one of your specials, I saw you refer to the fact that you used to work at a bagel shop. And I would love to know, and maybe the people here in Dayton who are familiar with many of our bagel shops, I would like to know what bagel shop you worked at.
Yes. Well, first of all, it's not this one, but do you remember the Bagel Connection?
Yes, I do.
Gosh, I loved that place. I love Bagel Connection. It went away, but it was such good memories from when I was a little kid. Then there was Bagel Cafe, of course, but I actually didn't work there. I worked at the one in my first bagel shop was in college in Oxford at Bagel and Deli.
Okay.
So
okay.
I worked there, and then after I graduated, I worked at basically one of its sister stores in Chicago called Chicago Bagel Authority.
Okay.
And
I was thinking for some reason you worked at a Dayton bagel store.
No, my job there in Dayton was Grater's ice cream.
Ah, yes, Grater's. Love Graders.
My mom was, being so sweet and hanging up some posters for the November 2nd show coming up. I guess, mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that's next weekend.
Yeah.
And she told the manager at Graders, my daughter invented the chocolate weasel sundae, which is so funny because they used to have the fill in the blank. We got to make up our own sundaes, and of course I made the chocolate weasel.
I love it.
Who knows how long it lasted. But.
Right. But that you have that claim to fame.
Exactly.
That's
inventor.
Awesome. Yeah.
I'm also an inventor of Dayton.
Inventor, that's right. Right up there with the Wright brothers and Patterson and,
Exactly.
Fraze and everybody. There's Beth Stelling. All right, so let's talk about the Saturday show, November 2nd. All new material? Or is this, or have you been out on tour and this is sort of kind of what you did last time? You just kind of made it to Dayton and here we are.
Yeah, this will be all different, all new material from the Netflix special that we taped there at the last time I played the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, at this point, I have over an hour and a half of new material, so I've been sort of honing in on what I'm most enjoying talking about. I have a really long story that keeps growing, that cracks my mom up. I think when my mom encourages me, it makes me realize, I should keep writing this, because I'm somebody who can add tags to something forever. So I'll extend something.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure I decided to actually start opening with the story on the road, and it's been pretty fun. Because if I save it for the end, it's almost like I'm out of energy, and it takes quite a bit of energy. So yeah, I got a longer story about my landlords. I finally moved, but I have a landlord story that's pretty fun to tell. And the rest of the material is, I'm me, and I grow and change, of course, but I tend to still talk about my personal life, my family.
Yeah.
So what's new with me? I started dating somebody I really like who has kids. So I'm this sort of fledgling stepmother at this point in my life. And what that looks like and in comparison to my sisters at home in Dayton. So it's different jokes, of course, but similar topics where I'm talking about my family and what's going on, and yeah. I also actually do have a little bit of I'm realizing, story again about some of my time as a student in Dayton. So I'm always coming up with stuff that has a bit of a love letter to Dayton.
Well, I love that, and I love how you talk about your mom. My mom is still alive, and she listens to my show every night. And sometimes I will get a call after the show. I didn't say that, or or that's not. I don't remember that, or what are you talking about, or I can't believe you talked about that. That kind of thing. But I'm like, hey, look, I tell anybody who has criticisms of my show, and this goes for you too, Mom. You've got an off switch. You can just turn it right off,
I do like that.
You just
That's
turn it right off, and then come back tomorrow and hope for a better set of pins. So, yeah. But
it didn't happen if you didn't hear it.
What? Say that again. I'm sorry. I didn't. What did you say? I'm
I
sorry.
was just saying, hey, it didn't happen if you didn't hear it.
That's
so
right.
you don't
That's
gotta
right. That's right. Well, Beth, this has been so great talking with you. I know you've got other stuff to do, and
you too.
I'm looking forward. I'm going to try to get there to the show, get some tickets, and be there at Victoria on Saturday, November 2nd, for your big show.
Yes, yeah. I'll reach out to make that easier for you. But thank you so much. I enjoyed talking with you. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm so looking forward to being back in Dayton. And yeah, people can get tickets at BethStelling.com or DaytonLive.org.
Yeah, are you coming in just for the show, or are you going to be here for a few days? Could we have some Beth Stelling sightings throughout the Dayton area? Oh,
it's true. I'm going to be passing out candy at my mom's. I love going home for Halloween and seeing all the
that's awesome,
cuties and all my nieces and nephews and their costumes coming through. So that's always fun. And
awesome.
I'm sure you'll catch me at either Pettibone or Ghostlight or any of the wonderful cafes they like visiting while home. And
yeah, I'd love to meet you in person. That'd be great.
Yes, I'd love that too.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it, Beth.
And, and I'll be with Sarah too. I think the show is actually sold out, but I'm going to do some shows around Ohio with Sarah. So
okay.
I'll be at those.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome.
And I look forward to the show. Of course. Take care.
You too. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.